relentless. Yeah, exactly. It's annoying. Like, yeah, it's extremely stressful. And this comes from somebody who's played the game. Like, I've beaten every single FromSoft game. Everything else, just design poorly, combos are chained, you never get to heal, and you never know when you're allowed to attack. Yeah, exactly. So what makes a game stressful? I think that whenever you can't, what do you call it? Whenever you can't, like, stop for a second and get heals, I think that's very annoying. I find it to be annoying, and I don't enjoy that type of gameplay. Remember the birds? Yeah, exactly.
Well, freaking Renala. I was having a really tough time with this boss battle for some reason. You know, this is essentially a knight mage kind of combo like boss battle. And
Renala, I think, I don't think Renala did that hardly at all. For example, like, I thought that, like, that boss didn't do it at all. I thought that boss was fine. That boss was a great boss.
I tend to be pretty good at those particular fights where it's just an enemy swinging swords around, but just there's something about her attack patterns, the range of her attacks, and the way she weaves around the field that was just so...
Well, the problem also is that... So, I haven't been able to, like, really fully figure this out, but I think that... So, do you know that there's, like, a flame attack combo that Mesmer does, where it's, like, 2 impales, and then there's, like, a fire attack, and then there's, like, a side swipe. I think that if you attack him after the side swipe, he can input read you, which will cause him to do a second attack, which will be a fire spear impale. In my opinion, I don't know if that's an input read or not, but it certainly feels like it. Yeah, Mesmer's an amazing fight. Yeah, you attack after the impale. Right, but, like, that's not always, because other times he'll do the side swipe and then he'll stop attacking. I actually thought Renal was the worst boss in DLC personally. Yeah, I like this boss the most. I thought this was the best boss.
Difficult to wrap my head around, and with my present build and level of scatter tree blessings, I was just being one-shot by some of her attacks, which just made it very difficult to advance. And so I decided to adjust my playstyle. I decided to kill her by parrying her from beginning to end. Learn her attacks so well that I could parry her attacks before she could start swinging around. And that is precisely what I did, motherfuckers.
Oh yeah, S-Fan's doing that. Pretty good.
I was so satisfied and so overjoyed by the fact that I managed to pull this off. Like, I
think that what he's saying is actually really true. And I think that, like, so his enthusiasm about it is why I think From Software games are so good. And the reason why I think he feels so good about it is because he decided to do that. Like, he decided to change his playstyle and do something different that gave him an advantage and let him solve the problem. And I think that's why, for example, people like the games. Because you can effectively turn on an easy mode in the game, but it feels like you've earned that easy mode because you have, like, almost, like, discovered it, if that makes sense.
So good at pairing in Sekiro, but pairing in sort of Dark Souls and Elden Ring, it's not as effective. But I decided, let's go back to Sekiro days and try pairing out. And when I did accomplish that, it took, you know, a couple hours of really learning, well, like 2 hours of learning her attacks before I got really good at it. But once I got good at it, I felt like a freaking god. And there comes a point where you fought a boss so many times. And
somebody says you refuse to adapt, which many players are not willing to do. The reason why a lot of players aren't willing to adapt is because of the way the game is designed. So there are two things that kind of lock you into, like, you only have a certain amount of respecs, and respecs have, like, a cost to them. And also, you can only fully upgrade one weapon at a time. Marble tiers, exactly. So because you are not able to infinitely respec, and you're not able to fully upgrade a weapon, you can upgrade it to a +9, or you can upgrade it to a +24, but you can't do a +25 or a +10 for, obviously, regular weapons and somber weapons as well. So I think the reason why players are less willing to change their build in a game like Elden Ring is because they're punished for doing so. And doing so is an opportunity cost. So, and I think that you can contrast this, for example, with Armored Core 6, where I think that changing build was just the norm at that point. So, like, for example, whenever I changed my build in Armored Core, everything became easy. So I think that's the difference. And if basically if you have a system that punishes you for adapting, then you should expect people not to adapt. It's pretty simple, right? I mean, because people don't want to get punished.
I've seen their attacks so many times where everything just kind of clicks. There comes that moment where you recognize that you are the one and you start the freaking Matrix. You understand everything that's happening in the boss battle. You understand every attack that's coming. And at that point, it just becomes about allowing your muscles to adapt to what your mind knows, so that you can just perfect your run and be able to just play this against this boss battle, be able to fight against this boss battle perfectly. And that's what happened with Renala. And when I, beat her with bated breath, with that sliver of health left, having to be patient, wait for her attack so I can pair her before I go in final kill. Oh my God, like the feeling, I hadn't gotten that in a while, and I loved it.
One thing that I'll say with Elden Ring is that whenever I've criticized other games like Lords of the Fallen or Lies of P or Dark Souls 2, a lot of the points of criticism that I have are things like bad animation, bad reads, like bad input reading, or bad hitboxes, for example, right? I don't think that Elden Ring has any of those problems, and I think that every single boss that I've done, when I get hit by something, I like maybe one time, it's like, oh, I shouldn't have gotten hit by that. But for the most part, every single thing has been perfect. It's not an issue of bad design. It's just an issue of it being extremely punishing and very hard. Even the hippo? I don't really know. I feel like, yeah, the hippo is... What is the attack? Or, like, I guess maybe the porcupine slam that he does in the air. I don't know how to dodge that, but I only did it, like, maybe 3 times, because I killed the boss really fast. But, like, the actual boss's animations and his hitbox, I think, was totally fine. Like, if I fought that hippo out in the open world, and I couldn't use Torrent, obviously, I think it would have been a great boss. The grab's inconsistent and weird. Oh, you're right. The grab is bad. That's actually not... Yeah, you're right. The grab is bad. Because I remember I did roll out of it, and I got hit by it, too.
I hated it, don't get me wrong, for a bit, because there came a point where, I was this close, and my mind just goes into panic mode, where I'm like, oh my God, I have this much health left, and now I gotta go in for the kill. But then that's when I fucked up the most. And so there were a couple times where I'm like, I had it. I just had to, like, do one more strike and she would have been dead, and then she killed me because I panicked. Yeah. And so eventually I learned to relax when I have that sliver of health left.
I almost
and I was in full control of that final run when I finally did beat her. And it was just the best feeling. And to me, I think that's what Miyazaki's trying to push the boundaries up, because he knows.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's a good thing. In my opinion, the Relnala whatever fight, I think that's the easiest fight that I've done. I don't know why so many people are saying that she's really hard. Bro, the grab is not inconsistent, though. You can check my VOD, and there were a couple of times where I rolled out of it, and then it teleported my character inside of his mouth. I think it was like the first or second attempt that I did. You staggered her during phase 2 and skipped most of the phase? Exactly, right? And so, like, that's why I thought it was easy. So can I try that? I didn't like the fight at all. Unlike the moon explosions, the coolest part of the fight. Yeah, for sure.
Players have gotten so good at his games that he needs to push the boundaries further to give them that feeling again. And I got that feeling again. So I, for one, am all about this. But I get that maybe not everyone is. But for those players, there are ashes. You got the summons that you can bring into the field. And there are summons... before every major boss battle, I've seen like essentially the golden signs on the floor that allows you to summon an NPC character to fight alongside you, and you can also summon an Ash. So that can significantly lower the difficulty if you prefer to just kind of push along and not be,
I thought about making doing a DLC run after I finish the game, and doing a game run the whole game where I will not cast a single attack and I have everybody else do everything for me. Like an actual pacifist run. And I see how fucking far can I get.
Hardcore FromSoft player like me who like will not beat a major boss battle
Is it impossible?
with a summon.
I don't know.
I want to do it by myself and triumph by myself, and that's what I ended up doing. And funny enough, I actually beat Renala, the second major boss, first before I beat the divine dancing lion beast, because he was just one-shotting me so much. And so I decided to like save that for later, explore, find a bunch of scatter tree fragments, and then beat the second boss first. I went back to the lion and he was still one-shotting me, so I decided to redo my build, and I decided to put more points into vigor and decided to equip certain talismans that would reduce the damage of some of his attacks. And once I like puzzle this out, I beat him a lot more easily. And
yeah, I didn't think the lion was that hard. Like I had a really hard time doing the second version of the lion, but that's because I was fighting him in a place that wasn't his arena. I think that whenever you're fighting the lion in the arena, I don't really think it's that bad. And I think the reason why a lot of people, like as soon as you realize the way that some of the mechanics on that fight work, it becomes extremely easy to do. Right? And you can take, actually that's not true. It's that the lion actually has, out of any of the main bosses, the lion has by far, like probably 2 or 3x the amount of time that he's vulnerable. It's just that the vulnerability phases happen in places that I think that many players don't immediately intuitively understand. Like for example, like whenever he goes up in the air and he's like in the air and then he dashes down, if you go underneath him in the air, he won't hit you with that. And then you don't have to worry about that or the headbutt, because that's what the one-shot was, right? Is it how many of you guys fought the lion, and like the lion, did you fight the second lion? I did. It was a motherfucker. But like, that's because I was fighting him in a weird arena. It was hard to see what was going on. But yeah, the camera's stun-locked. Yeah, the camera is really bad, but the boss isn't. The boss is like fine. I think that one thing that I don't like about combo attacks, and some games and some bosses have this, and I think that Elden Ring, like the new DLC, has it a little bit, is that when one combo hit causes you to get hit by like 3 or 4 other combo hits. I find that to be very frustrating, because it's like not only am I being punished, but I'm being punished 5 times. Like the lion comes down and he slams you, and then it's like, okay, you got hit by that, and then he does like the rock thing, and then your character's dead. It's like, fuck, right? So it's like at that point, like, why not just kill me on the first attack? It feels awful. So you have no poise, got it? No, I'm gonna ban you for that comment, because that's not the way the game works. So basically, so the way poise works in the game, this is gonna be an education for you. So, you know, don't leave just quite yet. So basically, if you have enough poise, it takes a knockdown and it turns it into a stagger. And if you have enough poise, it takes a stagger and it turns it into just a hit. So basically, if I had not enough poise, it would actually cause me to get knocked down, which would mean that I wouldn't be killed. So it's that middle ground actually that's the problem. So yeah, people just don't understand the game. And I want to say that like this is another issue, right? Is that a lot of the people that are like know-it-alls and like to talk shit about people playing the game, they don't even understand the way the game works.
And I fought him, and the battle felt a lot easier. So there's also that element of this game being so expansive in its freedom and in how you can build your character, that you can really kind of figure things out as well, and kind of put things into your advantage, or a little more advantageous than the battle would otherwise be.
Yeah.
And so it's just that combination of like, you know, giving me that sense of you gotta get good, and you gotta like do it over and over again until you start seeing the matrix, combined with you got all this free.
I think that's definitely true, and I felt that way fighting that Midra boss, definitely. I think that the real conversation isn't really about that. It's about whether that process feels good to do. And I would say that with bosses that are like super punishing and hyper aggressive, it feels a lot worse to go through that process, especially whenever they have like 6-hit combos.
freedom to be able to like play around with, to make the battle a little easier, to be able to tune things how you like, and to be able to find the right build that's just right for this boss battle. So I don't know for you, but that's the experience I got, and it gave me this great sense of satisfaction of like, I did this, you know, and I figured this out. I got good. I used my knowledge and skills to be able to overcome this seemingly insurmountable wall. And if that's...
I think that's the reason why the games are so popular. He's totally right about this. He's absolutely right. And I think that that's why the games are really fun. And I think that whenever you make a boss that's like extremely, extremely hard, it's harder for you to take advantage of those other tools, or you feel like you have to take advantage of those other tools. So it's kind of like a weird parallel to this is like classic WoW raiding, is that it doesn't really matter like what you bring to a classic WoW raid, you're going to clear the raid anyway because it's very easy. But the harder you make a fight, the more class stacking you have to have, the more, you know, of like uniform gameplay you have to have. You said it's too hard? Like, wow. Yeah, I did. And so I think that the issue is that it's meta, right? Yeah, and like the harder the fight is, the more people are going to try to go after a meta. I think that really, and this is like, again, a personal opinion, is that I think that it's dumb the way that weapon upgrades and the respecs work. And I think that psychologically, knowing that you only have a limited amount of respecs causes people to not want to adapt because they're worried of, oh, what if I have to use it later? That's the way that I do it, right? How many of you guys are the kind of people that you collect all of these things to save them for later and then you beat the game? It's very limiting concerning the amount of options. Exactly, right? Like rune arcs, where you can farm more rune arcs, to be fair. So, like, I think that that's also a big issue because, like, what he's saying is true, and I like the idea of changing your build, trying a new strategy, and using it, and it works. Like, that's clearly what I did yesterday. It worked really fucking well. So, I wish they just gave you another option to get more of those items, to just farm them out. I hate changing builds. I would like it a lot more if there was no opportunity cost of it. It's annoying. Yeah. People are so used to the legacy upgrade system at this point. I wouldn't mind them changing it the next game. Yeah. Like, and I feel that way with new weapons, right? Because I don't want to use a new weapon because then I have to full upgrade that weapon, and I know that there will be an opportunity cost of doing that. What I hated is smithing stones? Yeah. And again, that's just, I think that again, like, it's a psychological thing. So, like, there's not really a right and a wrong for this. So, like, if people are saying, like, oh, I don't feel this way, that's fine. But that's the way that it makes me feel. And it makes me feel like I don't want to take it. I don't want to take a risk and change something because I don't know if it will be worse or not.
What Miyazaki was going for my part, I think he achieved it. I, for one, am really happy with what this DLC has provided because it, for me personally, was exactly what I was looking for. As for what Miyazaki has said about the difficulty, he, in an interview, straight up said that he knows the game is too difficult, but lowering the difficulty, in his opinion, would break the game itself. Speaking to The Guardian, he said if we really wanted the whole world to play the game, we could just crank the difficulty down more and more, but that wasn't the right approach. Had we taken that approach, I don't think the game would have done what it did, because the sense of achievement that players gain from overcoming these hurdles is such a fundamental part of the experience. I agree with this. I used to be very intimidated by FromSoft games before it finally clicked and I got into them.
I think he's right. I mean, again, the only thing I'd want to see is just getting a little bit more wiggle room in fights for, like, being able to heal. That's the only thing that I genuinely, like, really annoys me. Everything else is pretty much fine. And a camera, right? But, like, that's not really difficulty, right? He didn't, it's not like he programmed the game for the camera to be bad.
And yeah, I just thought, like, why make it this hard? It's difficulty for the sake of difficulty. But once I understood the sense of fulfillment of, like, just trial and error until your brain adapts so well, like the human capability, the brain's capability to adapt to situations is insane. And when you get to that level of almost being just like a freaking pro at each of these boss battles, it is such a good feeling. You'd feel so godlike, and not many games out there provide that sense. He says turning down the difficulty would strip the game of that joy, which in my eyes would break the game itself. Again, this is not necessarily for everyone. and that's okay. But it is for me, man, and I think it is also for a lot of people. I want to be pushed. I want to be challenged now that I'm so deep into these FromSoft games. So I, for one, like totally get what Miyazaki is going for with this game. But Miyazaki also highlighted that there are ways to make the game easier if that's the approach you want to take. The amount of freedom
there's so many ways that you can do this. Yeah. Like, that's the thing, is that, like, Elden Ring, even, like, with the DLC, I guarantee you, like, whenever I fought that one boss, what was it? I don't even remember her name. Who cares what her fucking name is? The Scarlet Rot boss. Who gives a fuck? Killed her in the first try, it was a joke. There will always be a way to kill every boss in these games with absolutely zero skill. You could be fucking blind and do it. You just have to figure out what the right options are.
We've given players helps offset that difficulty curve and makes the game more accessible and engaging. If you want to go for that mage build who can Kamehameha his way through bosses with the combination of the physiques and the talismans that allow you to do a Kamehameha for a while without wasting mana or FP or whatever, like, you can do that. If you want to cheese your way through the game, you can do that. That's within your prerogative, and that's something you figured out, so that's still a victory for you.
Yeah, I think that's the main point, is that personally, this is the way that I feel about summons, is that I don't like the idea of the expectation to be to use summons, because I feel like using a summon isn't something that I've, like, earned as a player. It's like, I didn't figure this out. It's like just this tool that I can use that makes the fight way easier. It doesn't feel satisfying to use it and to know that you've accomplished something with it, because it feels closer to like a open your menu, turn down the difficulty setting, more than, like, let's say, like, figuring out a new build. Like, the reason why Yong is enjoying this so much, he had so much fun, is because he figured it out, right? Like, it's like he earned the ability to take advantage of this tool, versus, like, with summons and things like that, you didn't really earn this ability. It's just like an option in the game that makes it way easier. So I think that's the big difference between, like, changing a build versus, like, using a summon or something like that. At least that's the way that I feel about it. You start the game with summons, do you get in the game? Both.
Because you came up with this idea.
This is just you? Really? Yeah, I don't know. That's the way that I feel. That's the point, though. If the game's too hard, there are options to make it easier. Yeah, I understand that. But, like, in taking advantage of those options, if you feel like you don't have, like, you didn't earn that option, the accomplishment of beating the boss doesn't feel as good, naturally. Whereas if you feel like you did earn the option, it feels better.
Yeah, and, you know, you executed on it, and you use the game's mechanics to overcome obstacles that the game set before you, seemingly insurmountable obstacles. But then there are those bosses that will just be pains in the freaking asses, and you just have to get good at them, and that's what FromSoft games have been since the beginning. You know, that's what Soulsborne has been.
I think that he's right. The concern that I have is that I'm worried that, and I don't know, like, all the DLC has been harder, but I would say that the measure of difficulty with, like, the Elden Ring base bosses versus the DLC is several orders of magnitude higher than any other From Software DLC at all. Like, I don't think that I've ever seen, like, any difficulty that much, like, anymore. It's, like, way, way, way higher. And so what ends up happening is that I worry that if they keep designing the game... Hard disagree? I'm sorry, but Mesmer is, like, way fucking harder than anything in the base game. It's not even close. So Millennium's harder?